Talking specifically about your projects, are you facing any major challenge of finance, marketing, or any other challenge on your projects? Or is it life as usual? You have mentioned that there are problems that are there for industry as a whole, but specifically talking of your projects, do you recall what is happening in any of the projects?
If you talk about the problems in the project, specifically that I am currently handling, the biggest problem is basically in terms of the interpretation of laws. Now, earlier there was only one body, the municipal corporation. Now with multiple bodies coming in, regulation, how it's implemented and how it's interpreted, it becomes a gray zone. And because of that, our developer does not know how to, sometimes how to design, or how to implement, how to plan. So I think what is required is a body that can clarify all the regulations at one point. And there should be no gray areas which can, jeopardize the projects. So you have RERA saying something, you have corporation saying something, you have environment body saying something, a height body, and everybody comes different manner. For example, today, a development plan, the day when it's going to be implemented, it's a moving target. But to RERA, when I give commitment to customers, it's a fixed target. Now, how do I work in an environment where to my customers the date is fixed, but from a side of vendor, in a way BMC is my vendor, they are giving permissions to me. There is no fixed target from that side. So that's the big challenge that a developer is facing today.
We see rapidly increasing trend of development management model now gaining prominence in the country, be it Shapoorji Realty, be it L&T Realty, Godrej, and several other developers are now gaining attraction on development management model. Do you think this is now the future direction, that most of the landowners will turn to the development managers, and small developers will also turn to the development manager, or you see it is only a short-term matter and maybe later on it will not be, development management model will not be that popular? What is your opinion?
See, the reason that development model has actually been in the talk recently is because a lot of small developers have not been able to find buyers for their products. And that's because basically because of the trust gap. The big brand comes in and fills that trust gap. So to that extent, yes, there's a value creation. But if you see very holistically, the real estate business is a business of risk, of managing risk. And you can manage risk only if you have skin in the game. So the current model does not involve risk in the game, or the skin in the game for the development manager. So I think till a model develops where everybody's interests are aligned, everybody's skin in the game, I think till that time it will be more transitionary phase. If we can come to a model where all the stakeholders have skin in the game, then I'm sure then that model, I think, would be a long-term, will have a long-term, I would say, future. But the current model in which, it's like more like transactional and not relationship in nature, which I think will be only really in transitionary nature.
Coming specifically to quantum services and quantum's role, you have been, Shapoorji Group has been using quantum services since last 5-6 years across different product and service verticals. Would you like to share any, if you recall, some of the benefits that you derived from the quantum services, which all services you have used? Would you like to share your experiences with us?
Okay, as far as my experience with quantum is concerned, I think the two or three things that I think are very important here. Firstly, a PMC is not a person who should support client's view. He should actually guide the client. Very often, PMCs do not have guts to challenge client's vision or his thoughts. It is the reason PMC would exist is that he can help the client or guide the client in fulfilling vision, rather than his accepting his thoughts. I think that's why I think quantum adds value, because I find them truthful. And it's very difficult to find a consultant who's actually truthful. So that is, I think, the first benefit, I think, which I've seen, or difference I've seen in quantum as compared to other consultants. Secondly, there is a very fine line that divides propensity to earn and integrity. So a PMC's job in a way is like a credit rating agency. You never know who the client is, whether it's an investor or whether it's the fundraiser. The fundraiser pays the money to credit rating agency, but the investor trusts him. So a PMC also is in a similar position. For example, I give an experience when I asked Mr. Pandit, can I have some data on various projects in Mumbai? He said, I cannot give data, but I can give knowledge. So yes, so there's a fine line he's dividing. He is not sharing data, so he's being high. He is integrity, but his job also is to make money for his company and for his shareholders. So he's selling knowledge. So he keeps that line or the wall very clearly divided. I think that's a very big thing that I think that Quantum has brought into the table. You have integrity and you make money as well. I think that line is very important.
Offhand, does anything come to your mind or suggestion that you can give us for value-added services or for improvements that Quantum can do and should do as an advisory from you, your wish list? As the next step, Quantum is on a fast growth path. It recorded close to 50-60% growth in the last year. Is there any such recommendation that we can take from you?
So if I were to devise the Quantum's business plan, I would say it has to first look at how the industry is actually moving forward. I mean the real estate developer industry. Now if you see, a lot of developers are now going to feel two things. One is the cost of manpower that is going to become very high. And second, the lack of bandwidth, management bandwidth with the developers. And because a developer may have just 2 or 3 projects, so he may not be able to afford that kind of management bandwidth. And this management bandwidth is not only in one particular field, it's also in sales, in marketing, in strategy, in maybe fundraising, or maybe even in operations. So every vertical of real estate requires good amount of management bandwidth, but all developers cannot afford it. Secondly, there's also lack of manpower in the market. So I think that's where big value comes for a company like Quantum, that they can provide management depth, management bandwidth at various levels in the real estate industry, which is grossly missing. And these are like hired management services, and which are normally would not be available to a developer or will be extremely expensive otherwise from any international consultant. I think their domestic domain knowledge, and that if it can be shared across developers, I think would be a wonderful value addition for the entire industry.